Well, now to some troubling developments out of Iran, where a court has sentenced two activists to death. Amnesty International says the first person is a gender non-conforming LGBTQ activist. Authorities charged the person with, quote, corruption on earth and accused her of trafficking young women. Another person has also been charged and sentenced to death in the same case. Amnesty calls on Iran to immediately quash the convictions and sentences and release the two women. Well, let's get more on this story from CNN's Salma Abdelaziz. Good to have you with us, Salma. So homosexuality, of course, is illegal in Iran. These two women, both activists, sentenced to death. What more can you tell us about this case?
Well, it's a continuation largely of what human rights groups and activist groups have been saying for a very long time now, which is that sexual minorities in Iran are persecuted. You mentioned, of course, the penal code in Iran. That persecutes any sexual minorities, any sexual relationships outside of marriage. Now, let's take this specific case. These two individuals, one is a known activist, just to clarify. The other one, we don't have enough information on that individual to know exactly what their role was. But Zahra Sadriqi Hamdani, this individual in their 30s, was arrested in Iran late last year, now an Iranian court handing down a death sentence to Hamdani and another individual, Ilham Shobdar. The accusation, the Iranian court says they are being sentenced to death for, quote, corruption on earth. Iranian state media saying that the court found them guilty of allegedly human trafficking, of smuggling young women and girls out of Iran. But Amnesty International and other rights groups say this is absolutely baseless, Lynda. They say Hamdani in particular, who is known in the activist community as Sarah, is a known LGBTQ plus activist, someone who is perceived to be, or Iran perceives to be, gender non-conforming. And that is the reason, their activism, their identity, that is the reason that an Iranian court handed down this sentence. Amnesty International, of course, expressing outrage, calling on Iran to immediately release Hamdani and Shobdar. There will be an appeal in an Iranian court, so we will see what the result of that is. But for Hamdani, for Sarah, this is part of a longer deal, Lynda, for this individual who was originally arrested in Erbil last year after speaking to the BBC about the persecution of LGBTQ plus people in Iran. After they were released, after Sarah was released in Iraq, they tried to seek asylum in Turkey by traveling through Iran into Turkey. Of course, they were detained in Iran, and now, of course, this charge, this sentence, this death penalty being handed down. Of course, there will be an appeal, so we'll see what happens there. But this is a continuation, human rights defenders say, of this very worrying and very concerning persecution of sexual minorities in Iran.
And just quickly, Salma, what are the avenues for appeal?
Well, that's very vague at this point, of course, as you can imagine. Now, you have two different tales here, of course. Iranian state media, the Iranian government saying that this is a case of human trafficking, that this death sentence is because they found Hamdani and Shobdar guilty of smuggling women and girls across the border. Amnesty International, of course, saying otherwise. So you're still talking about the Iranian judiciary here, and historically speaking, activists will tell you, it could not turn out to be a fair trial in their eyes for somebody who is a clear and known activist again. Lynda.
All right. Salma Abdelaziz for us in London. Thanks very much. Well, still to come as we await the arrival of Liz Truss in Downing Street, we'll look at the most urgent problem facing Britain's new Prime Minister. Stay with us. You're watching CNN.